Sophia Reyes clutched her worn leather portfolio against her chest, her heart pounding as she hurried through the gleaming lobby of Harrington Global Holdings. The pristine marble floors reflected the morning sunlight, making her feel even more out of place in her carefully pressed second-hand blazer. At 29, she had mastered the art of making everything appear more expensive than it actually was. But standing in this corporate empire of wealth and success, she felt every bit the struggling single mother she was. "Please, please, please," she whispered, jabbing the elevator button repeatedly. Her interview was in 12 minutes, and she needed this job more than she'd ever needed anything in her life. Well, almost anything. Her son, Noah's smile still topped that list. The thought of his gap-toothed grin as she had dropped him off at Mrs. Holloway's apartment that morning gave her strength. "I'll make dinosaur nuggets for dinner if you're good today, buddy," she had promised, even though it was the last package in their nearly empty freezer. She had skipped breakfast again this morning, leaving the remaining cereal for Noah. Rent was due next week and their kitchen cabinets were practically bare, but she couldn't bear to see the disappointment in his eyes when there was nothing special to eat. The elevator doors finally slid open and Sophia darted inside, pressing the button for the 51st floor. Just as the doors began to close, a hand shot through the gap. The doors reversed, revealing a man who looked as though he had stepped straight off the cover of a business magazine, tall, dark-haired, with striking features and eyes that crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled apologetically at her. "Thanks for holding it," he said, though she hadn't. His voice was deep and smooth, with a subtle richness, perhaps a slight accent, though she couldn't quite place it. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. Sophia managed a polite nod, forcing herself to focus on reviewing her interview responses in her head. The executive assistant position at the marketing department could change everything for her and Noah. The salary would mean no more agonizing choices between groceries and electricity. No more stretching a gallon of milk for days. No more pretending she wasn't hungry so Noah could have a full meal. Just last night, she had caught him setting aside half of his dinner for her, his small face so serious as he pushed his plate forward. No more sleepless nights wondering how to stretch the last $5 until payday. Or fighting back tears at the grocery store as she put back necessities she simply couldn't afford. The elevator hummed smoothly upward, passing the 20th floor when a strange grinding noise echoed through the space. The car shuddered and Sophia's stomach lurched as it came to an abrupt halt. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized. "No, no, no," she breathed, fingers trembling as she pressed the emergency call button. "This can't be happening." Her interview was in. She checked her phone. 8 minutes. No signal. "Of course." "Hey, it's okay," the man beside her said, his voice calm, reassuring. "These things usually sort themselves out pretty quickly." He pressed the call button himself, and a crackly voice finally responded, informing them that maintenance was aware of the issue and working on it. "I have an interview," Sophia blurted out, hating how her voice cracked. "It's important. Really important." He studied her face for a moment, and she noticed his eyes were an unusual shade of hazel, flecked with gold and green. "Tell me about it," he said, loosening his tie slightly and leaning back against the elevator wall. "What's the position?" Maybe it was the stress. Maybe it was the warmth in his expression. But Sophia found herself talking, telling him about the executive assistant role, about how she had spent weeks preparing, researching Harrington Global's recent acquisitions and marketing strategies. She told him about the night classes she had been taking in business administration, squeezing in assignments after Noah fell asleep. "Noah?" he asked, his voice softer. "My son," she said, pulling out her phone and showing him the lock screen, a photo of a beaming 4-year-old with her dark curls and dimpled cheeks. "He's my whole world." "He looks like a great kid," the man said, something unreadable flashing across his face. "A shadow. Pain, maybe? Or longing?" "He is," Sophia whispered. "That's why this interview means everything. I want to give him the life he deserves." The man was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I give you some interview tips? I've conducted quite a few in my time." For the next 20 minutes, as maintenance worked on the elevator, he coached her through possible questions, offering insights she hadn't considered. He had a way of making complicated corporate strategies sound simple, clear. And despite her panic about the time, she found herself relaxing, even laughing at his clever observations about office politics. "You know," he said after she had successfully handled a difficult mock interview scenario, "you have something most candidates don't. Genuine resilience. Real determination. Don't be afraid to let that show." The elevator lights flickered again. Then, the car began to move. Sophia's heart jumped. She was officially late. Her chances were probably ruined. "What floor?" the man asked. 51st, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the crushing disappointment settling in her chest. Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Amusement? But before she could analyze it, the doors slid open. The man gestured for her to step out first. "Thank you," she said, meaning it for far more than just the courtesy. "You made a terrifying experience much less scary." He smiled, and this time it reached all the way to his gold-flecked hazel eyes. "The pleasure was mine, Sophia." She blinked. She had never told him her name. Before she could ask how he knew it, he pressed a button, and the doors closed between them. For a second, she just stood there, confused, then turned toward the reception desk. The receptionist looked up, her expression shifting to something akin to surprise. "Ms. Reyes, Mr. Callahan is ready to see you now." Sophia's brows furrowed. "I'm here to interview with Ms. Holloway, the marketing director." The receptionist's lips twitched. "There's been a slight change of plans. Mr. Callahan, the CEO, has requested to conduct your interview personally." Sophia followed the receptionist down the long glass-paneled hallway, her mind spinning. The CEO? Why would he want to interview her? Her steps slowed as a thought struck her. The man in the elevator. His familiarity with the company. The way he had known her name. The receptionist pushed open a sleek office door, and there he was, the man from the elevator. His hazel eyes, flecked with gold, twinkled with something between mischief and curiosity. But there was something else in his expression, too. Something that made her pulse stumble. "Welcome, Sophia," he said warmly. "Shall we begin our second interview?" Sophia barely made it to the chair across from his desk, her heart still hammering from the realization. Behind him, a towering wall of windows offered a breathtaking view of Seattle, the Space Needle standing tall against the gray morning sky. But her focus was locked on him. The CEO of Harrington Global Holdings, Graham Callahan. "Let's be honest with each other, Sophia," he said, his tone shifting to something more professional, though his eyes still held a trace of warmth. "Your resume is impressive, but it's your persistence that caught my attention. 3 applications." Heat rushed to her cheeks. "I believe in Harrington Global's mission of sustainable business development," she said, sitting straighter. "Every position I applied for aligned with my skills and you need this job," Graham finished softly. The simple statement hung in the air. Sophia lifted her chin. "Yes, I do. But that's not the only reason I'm here. I've researched every project your marketing department has launched in the past 5 years. I can tell you the success rate of your eco-friendly packaging initiative, the social media engagement growth from your last 3 campaigns. I'm here because I know I can contribute to this company's success." Something shifted in his gaze. A hint of amusement. A flicker of something more. "Tell me about Noah." The unexpected shift made her pause. What would you like to know?" "Everything you're comfortable sharing," he said, "starting with why you were near tears over being late today." His voice held concern, not pity. Sophia hesitated, but only for a moment. "Yesterday, I had to tell him we couldn't go to his best friend's birthday party this weekend. The gift would have meant no groceries for 3 days." Her voice wavered. He smiled and said it was okay, that maybe we could make a birthday card instead. She let out a shaky breath. "He's for Mr. Callahan. He shouldn't have to understand things like that yet." Graham's fingers tightened slightly on his desk. "And his father?" he asked. "Not in the picture?" "No," she said, lifting her chin. "He left when I told him I was pregnant. Honestly, it was the best thing he could have done for us. Noah deserves better than someone who runs from responsibility." A muscle in Graham's jaw flexed. "Indeed," he murmured, something unreadable flickering across his face. Then, abruptly, he stood and walked to the window. "I have a confession to make, Sophia." Her stomach twisted. "I already knew most of this." She inhaled sharply. "After your second application, I had HR pull together a detailed report on you. Single mother. Putting yourself through night school. Working 2 part-time jobs while raising a child. No missed rent payments despite financial strain. Glowing references from every employer." Sophia's hands clenched in her lap. Was this good? Or bad? Graham's back was still to her, his broad shoulders tense beneath his crisp navy suit. "But what stood out to me," he continued, "was the volunteer work. 2 hours every Sunday at Harborview Children's Hospital. reading to kids in the oncology ward. Even when you could barely keep your own head above water, you still made time for others. Slowly, he turned to face her again. And when their eyes met, the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "That's the kind of person I want in my company," he said. "Not just someone with skills and determination, but someone with heart." "Mr. Callahan." "Graham," he corrected. "Especially since I'm about to offer you a different position than the one you applied for." Her fingers tightened around the chair's armrests. "Different position? I need a new chief of staff. Someone to coordinate across all departments, manage high-level projects. Be my right hand in running this company. And then, the salary is 3 times what the executive assistant role offers." Sophia's head spun. 3 times the salary. That would mean no more empty cabinets, no more sleepless nights, no more saying no to birthday parties. Noah could have new clothes, winter boots, maybe even those art classes he had been begging for. "Why?" she whispered. "Why me? Surely there are more qualified." "Because in that elevator," Graham said, "I saw exactly who you are. Prepared, resourceful, smart. When you talked about your son, your whole face lit up. When you spoke about our company's projects, your intelligence and enthusiasm shone through. That's rare, Sophia. Most people in that situation would have been too busy panicking." He leaned forward slightly. "But there's something else you should know before you accept. Something about why I was so interested in hearing about your son." Sophia's breath hitched at the pain that crossed his face. He reached for a silver frame on his desk, turned it toward her. A photo of a little girl, 6 or 7. Dark hair, hazel eyes, flecked with gold. "My daughter, Charlotte," he said softly. "She would have been 8 next month." The past tense hit Sophia like a punch to the chest. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Leukemia. 2 years ago." His fingers brushed the edge of the frame. "The hospital where you volunteer, that's where she spent her last 6 months." Sophia inhaled sharply. "The reading program you participate in?" It was started with a donation in her name. Tears burned in her eyes. His reaction to Noah's photo. The shadow in his gaze. His interest in her volunteer work. "I've read in Charlotte's room," she realized. "There's a plaque, Charlotte's Corner. The walls are painted with butterflies." A soft, aching smile touched his lips. "She loved butterflies," he murmured. "Said they were proof that beautiful changes could happen even when you couldn't see them coming." Silence fell between them. But this time it was filled with understanding. Sophia no longer saw Graham Callahan as just a CEO. She saw him as a father. A father who had known unimaginable loss. "So," he asked, voice rough with emotion, "are you ready for the challenge?" Their eyes met. And for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. "When do I start?" she asked softly. His smile was like sunlight breaking through clouds. "How about over lunch?" The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of changes. Sophia's first paycheck felt like a miracle. She spent nearly an hour in the grocery store, standing in the aisle, blinking back tears as she filled her cart with fresh fruits, vegetables, and, of course, several boxes of dinosaur nuggets. When she got home, Noah's eyes grew huge at the sight of a fully stocked kitchen. His small hands immediately reached for the bright red strawberries he had always begged for, the ones she could never afford before. Working directly with Graham Callahan was both exhilarating and exhausting. He was brilliant, demanding, and surprisingly funny. He challenged her in ways she had never been challenged before, pushing her beyond what she thought she was capable of. But in between the long work hours, she noticed things. How he always listened when she spoke. How he genuinely valued her input. How he remembered small details about her, her love for black coffee, her tendency to take notes in blue ink. How he always somehow knew when she needed a break. And everything was perfect. Until the whispers started. "Did you hear? She got the job after being stuck in an elevator with him. A single mom with no executive experience?" "Yeah, sure. We all know how she got the position. I heard she researched his dead daughter to manipulate him." That last one, overheard in the ladies' room, felt like a punch to the gut. Sophia fled to her office, hands shaking as she gripped the edge of her desk. She had known there would be talk. It was a massive promotion after all. But she hadn't expected such cruelty. A knock at her door made her jump. "Sophia?" Graham's voice. "The board meeting starts in 5 minutes. Are you ready to present the new sustainability initiative?" She grabbed her tablet, forcing a smile. Of course. But as she followed him down the hallway, she could feel it. The sideways glances. The quiet conversations that stopped as they passed. Graham seemed oblivious. But Sophia felt each stare like a physical weight. The board meeting started smoothly. She had prepared for this meticulously. This was her first real chance to prove herself to the company's top executives. But as she began speaking, she saw the skepticism, the doubt, the silent glances exchanged between board members. Ms. Reyes, one of them, finally interrupted, voice polite but dismissive. These proposals are quite ambitious. Perhaps someone with more experience should oversee such significant changes. The implication was clear. Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice steady as she defended her work. She could feel Graham watching her closely. Later that evening, as the office emptied, he appeared at her door. "Walk with me." She hesitated, but then nodded. They ended up in the small rooftop terrace, a quiet space she had discovered during late nights at the office. The city lights below them sparkled like scattered diamonds. "You've heard the rumors." It wasn't a question. Sophia swallowed hard. "Oh, yes. And they're bothering you." "I can handle it," she said quickly. "It's not the first time I've had to prove myself." Graham's hands tightened around the metal railing. "You shouldn't have to prove anything. Your work speaks for itself." Sophia let out a short laugh. "Does it?" She turned to face him. "Or did you really just hire me because of what happened in that elevator? Because I reminded you of Charlotte?" The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Pain flashed across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by something colder. "Is that what you think?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "That I made a multimillion-dollar decision based on emotional manipulation?" "No, I." Sophia crossed her arms, suddenly feeling small. "The timing. The connection. Even I have to admit it looks suspicious." "Look at me," he demanded. When she did, his intensity stole her breath. "Yes, meeting you in that elevator changed something. Yes, hearing about Noah, discovering your connection to Charlotte's reading program, it meant something. But I hired you because you're brilliant. Because you're hardworking. Because you are exactly what this company needs." He stepped closer, and her heart pounded. "The truth is, these past 2 weeks have been the most alive I've felt since losing Charlotte. You've challenged me, made me laugh, made me think, made me feel things I thought I'd never feel again." The air between them shifted, crackled. Sophia could see the flecks of gold in his eyes, smell his subtle cologne. Her body swayed toward him, almost involuntarily. Then, her phone buzzed. "Mrs. Holloway." "He's running a fever," the elderly woman said. "Been asking for you." And just like that, reality crashed down. What was she doing? She couldn't risk this job. Couldn't let the whispers become shouts. "I have to go," she whispered, stepping back. "Noah is sick. Let me drive you." "No." It came out too sharp. That would just make things worse. His eyes darkened with understanding. "So you're letting them win?" "I'm being practical. I'm a single mother who needs this job. I can't afford to." She couldn't finish the sentence. She couldn't afford to fall for him. Couldn't afford to risk everything. "Sophia, I'll have the revised proposal on your desk tomorrow morning," she said formally, retreating. "Good night, Mr. Callahan." She felt his eyes on her back. Every step felt like she was walking away from something precious. But she had learned long ago, single mothers don't get fairy tales. No matter how charming the prince. No matter how much her heart ached to turn around. In her car, Sophia finally let the tears fall. Her phone buzzed. A text from Graham. "Graham, this conversation isn't over. Some things are worth the risk." She stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then started the car. Noah needed her. That was all that mattered. That had to be all that mattered. But as she drove home through the glittering streets of Seattle, her heart whispered, that maybe, just maybe, she was making the biggest mistake of her life. 3 days passed. 3 days of Sophia burying herself in work, keeping her interactions with Graham strictly professional. Emails, brief meetings, nothing more. Noah's fever had broken, but her heart still felt sick. The office whispers hadn't stopped, but now they had shifted. Guess she turned him down. He looks miserable. Wonder what happened. She rejected him? Bold move for someone who still needs job security. The newest rumor? A failed affair. She was reviewing quarterly reports late one evening when a knock at her office door startled her. Patricia Chin, a board member, the same woman who had questioned her credibility during the sustainability meeting. Her expression was serious. "Ms. Reyes, may I speak with you privately?" Sophia's stomach twisted, but she nodded. "Of course." Patricia sat, smoothing her impeccable suit. "I owe you an apology." Of all the things Sophia had expected, this wasn't one of them. "I was wrong about you," Patricia continued. "I reviewed your work on the sustainability initiative. Your projections. Your strategy, your community engagement plans, they're exemplary. But more than that, I learned something about you that changed my perspective. She placed a worn children's book on Sophia's desk. The cover showed a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. My granddaughter, Ellie, is in the oncology ward at Harborview Children's Hospital, Patricia said softly. She told me about the kind lady who reads to them every Sunday, who does different voices for all the characters, who brings stickers for the kids who are having hard days. She said this lady missed last Sunday, and the one before, but she had read this book about butterflies and change so many times that Ellie memorized it. Sophia's hands trembled as she touched the book's cover. Charlotte's favorite, she whispered without thinking. Patricia's eyes softened. Ellie told me how much she loves Charlotte's Corner, she continued. How the butterfly murals make her feel less scared. I didn't make the connection until yesterday, Patricia admitted, when I overheard someone making a cruel comment about you. I didn't know, Sophia said quickly. When I started volunteering, I had no idea about the connection to Graham or Charlotte. Those kids deserve something to smile about. Patricia nodded slowly, then reached across the desk and squeezed Sophia's hand. I've spoken to the board. We've unanimously approved your sustainability initiative. Sophia's vision blurred. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Patricia smiled. This is purely selfish. We want to keep you here where you belong. She stood, straightening her suit. And, Sophia? Stop letting fear hold you back. The heart knows what it needs, even when the mind tries to be practical. With that cryptic statement, she left, leaving Sophia staring at the butterfly book. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Mrs. Holloway. Mrs. Holloway. Noah keeps asking when he can meet your friend with the green eyes. Says you smile different when you talk about him. Something inside Sophia broke. She had spent so much time protecting herself, being practical, that she had forgotten what she had learned from all those hours reading to sick children, that sometimes the most beautiful changes happen when you're brave enough to let them. She grabbed her coat, rushed to the elevator, pressed the button for the top floor. Her heart pounded as she pushed open the door to the rooftop terrace. Graham was standing at the railing, his suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up, staring at the Seattle skyline. I've been an idiot, she blurted. He turned. The look in his eyes stole her breath. Have you? Yes. She stepped closer. I've spent my whole life being practical, making the safe choice, keeping my walls up to protect myself and Noah. But the truth is, sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one at all. Sophia, let me finish. When I'm with you, I feel something I've never felt before. It terrifies me, because it's not just about me anymore. If I let myself fall for you, and things go wrong, it's not just my heart that gets broken. Noah is it. The most important person in your life, Graham finished. As he should be. But Sophia, did you ever consider that maybe that's one of the reasons I fell in love with you? The world seemed to stop. What? Your love for him shines through everything you do. Your strength, your determination to give him a better life. It's beautiful. You've shown me that it's possible to keep going, to find joy again, even after life breaks your heart. He cupped her face in his hands. I love the way you challenge me at work, how you see solutions where others see problems. I love how you bring stickers to sick children, and do funny voices while reading stories. I love that you've made me laugh again, made me hope again. Tears slipped down Sophia's cheeks. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. But you taught me something, Sophia. Sometimes the most beautiful changes require us to break free from our safe cocoons. She laughed through her tears. That was terribly cheesy. I know. His smile was tender. But it's true. She took a deep breath. Then, slowly, rose onto her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his.